So to finish off this section, and before we take a look at get and post, I want to be able to iterate through that data, do something with the data in the Python program. I'm not going to go too far into it, just a matter of getting the data and being able to play with it. So if we go back to our Python program, we've just been looking at this section, printing a particular value. I actually want to print maybe all of the last names that came from the database. The first thing I need to do is work out how many rows I've got. If you remember in the JSON data here, when I open it up, I got 4 distinct rows, and we know that from when we programmed it, how many we got to begin with. So I need to pick up that value. I want to be able to get hold of that value. So I'm going to have a variable rows, which is going to hold that result, and using the Python function on an array, we use len and len value, okay, because value contains the result of person, and that should give me the 4 rows. And I can see that happen if I then choose to print out the value rows. I'm expecting to get the value 4. So this way we've picked up how many rows we have in our database. So if I run that, just to show you, there we go, I have 4 rows. So now I know how to find out how much information is in there, and because this can change, it can be 5, it can be less. If we delete items from the database, we've got no idea how many rows we're going to return, but we have a method now of finding out how many rows there are in the database. What I need to do is use that so I can grab any data that I want and do anything that I want with it, put it in a list, place it on a map, do whatever I want. So I'm going to iterate through each single row in the database or in the returned value. It will look like I'm doing it through the database. And it's just a standard method of looping. I'm going to choose a for loop to do it. So I'm going to set the index to be in the range of the number of rows that I returned above, and all I'm going to do then is print. Now this is the only difficult part. I've got to print, can't just print rows, I've got to print whatever is at value, because that's my result person. So I'm now looking at this level, and then I have to give it the numeric value, which I've now got here. The index is going to run from 0 to 3, although it's 4 there, it's going to give me rows minus 1 as it's looping. So I'm going to put my index in there, but that has just told me which one of these to choose. I actually need to choose a field that is within one of these items here. So if I click on there, maybe I can just choose last name, so I can choose the field. There we go, last name, and that should be it. That should, if I run it, it should print out all of those the last names in the data set that was returned from the database. So if I save it and run it, there we go, Blogsmith, Negus Smith, superb. So what I've got now, actually let me just close that shell down, it does annoy me at times. There we go. And take these bits of information out, we don't need those. Again, we've only got a few lines of code in Python, a few lines of code in PHP, and a very simple database, and we've got something quite powerful. We can pull out whatever we want, and we can play around with that. I'm not going to go into how to play around with it. I'm going to leave that up to you. Whatever you choose as a database, or whichever API you're using, and we'll look at some later when the series is finished. And basically what you do with the data is your project. I've shown you how to access it, create it, and then do something with it. So in the next set of videos, I'm going to show you the get method using Python and the post method using Python, so that we can be a bit more specific with the results that we return from our database. For example, in a get, I may want to just find all the people who've got the surname Smith, and if I run this one again, we will see that we've got 2 Smiths, Smith there, Smith there, so I should be able to return just the 2 Smiths, so I only have 2 rows. But I would need to pass information from my Python program, from my handler, to the PHP file, which then queries the database, returns the results back to the PHP, encodes it, sends it back to the Python, and then prints out the results that we've got. So it's quite a big task, but not a lot of code to actually manage and change. And it's very useful. This is what you'll probably want to do, rather than just at the moment get everything from the database. So you are selecting the information you want from the database. Using the post method, I'll show you exactly the same trick using the post method, proving that get and post really are the same thing. It's just a different way of communicating with the PHP. But I'm also going to use the post method in its usual fashion. In other words, I don't want people to be able to send bogus information to my database, or set off a query of their own, formatting up my database and losing all the information. So I'm going to use post so that it does not transmit the information in the address bar, and I'm going to use that to actually put more values into the database. And once that's completed, you will have a fully working, fully fledged program where you can choose whatever data you want to return, and you can add data to your database, and then whatever you want to do with that data in your Python program, you can do. So that's sort of the next few videos running up, and once we've got past that point, then we need to start looking at different languages, maybe Android, maybe iOS.